It's time for Artist Direct on KDEC FM 100.5, your local connection to the music scene. Today's program is made possible by Holstrom Jewelers, Elm Street, Cresco.
What good is remembering when the thought of you tears at the seams of every dream that I've built since then? It could be anything, could be standing on a corner in China and somebody will say your name. I thought I was stronger than that when I was young. Older people would reminisce, I'd say no, that's not me. That's not me, it's you, it's always been. Your ghost just will not rest. Walking the horizon line in my favorite summer dress. Do you remember when I broke your clutch and you threw both your shoes at me? Talking your brother into buying us wine, cause we didn't have any ID. What was so rough? Was it the freedom that freaked us out? Now nobody's free, and there's so much we could do without. We could live in a dream, live in a dream, live in a dream, live in a dream. What good is remembering? Got me standing on the present moment like an island in an endless sea. We can only go sailing out, drawing circles and circles, but there's no safe harbor out there for me. I thought I was smarter than that, thought that I could live two lives at once, while other suckers, they just lived one. What's the moment in your life that you just would not trade? If you had a time machine, would you go back there today? Do you remember when you kissed me so hard that you chipped both of my front teeth? Counting our cigarettes and spacing them out, trying to make them last the whole week. What was so rough? Was it the freedom that freaked us out? Now nobody's free, and there's so much we could do without. We could live in a dream. Baby, we could work it out. We could live in a dream. Baby, we could work it out. We could live in a dream. Live in a dream. Live in a dream. Live in a dream.
It's Artist Direct here on FM 100.5, and of course that was the sounds of Mason Jennings off of his album Minnesota, a track entitled Clutch. I've got Mason on the phone with me this morning. Good morning, Mason.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Glad to have you here. Really excited that we get a chance to talk a little bit about your music. I know we've had you here in Decorah, and that was quite exciting. But now that the new album is out, and it just has been out, what, a month now? A little bit less. We get a chance to talk about the new album. So, Clutch. First of all, I enjoy hearing you do a little piano work because I know you go back and forth between the two. What was your feeling when you sit down to write a song? Do you go, okay, this is going to be a piano one, or is it you're playing around and you come up with something on an instrument?
Yeah, I think it's more just spontaneous. Yeah, my last record, Blood of Man, was so much electric guitar, and I toured on that for a couple years. Touring in front of a rock band like that, I think I just kind of got a little tired of how loud it was. And when I'd come off the road to write, I think I naturally gravitated towards the piano.
Do you feel like you write differently at the piano?
Yeah, I think the main difference with the piano is that usually there's the piano has a melody to it, and then I sing back and forth with sort of, it's more call and response with the piano. It's almost like there's two voices singing, whereas a guitar, it's almost more like just a bed that the single vocal track lays on.
Yeah. Well, actually, that makes a lot of sense. When you with the song Clutch in particular, it has this with that piano going, it has this, I don't know if it's melancholy is the right word. What were you feeling when you sat down to write it?
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of interesting when I write songs because it's like usually at the end of it that I actually realize I've been writing it at all. It's almost more like you said, the spirit of play at the beginning. I mean, to me, it's sort of the same feeling as when I was little and I'd go outside and try to make up a game, like when you're a little kid and you're just making up some game on the fly. And it's the same kind of feeling. And then all of a sudden you realize like an hour is gone or 2 hours are gone and you're like, oh, that was cool. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, I guess I got, 80% of a song written here. And it's a real similar feeling to that where it's just trying to sort of like be in the moment and be in the spirit of the day.
So you're talking about this sense of play, which I think is interesting because you are a father, you have a family, and as a mother of 3 myself, I don't even know when I get that kind of time to lose an hour. How do you make that space given a family scenario?
Well, I treat it like, for me, my wife stays home with the kids, so for me, I treat like the day like a regular work day, and the thing about being a songwriter and a musician is, for me, I have to be pretty disciplined about just clearing away time for that kind of spirit, So it might not look like somebody else's work day, but I make sure that I have time for it. One of my favorite producers always told me, he's always saying, it's sort of like fishing. You got to keep your line in the water all the time. And for me, I just make sure that I have periods during every day that I'm open to that kind of spirit, and then so much of songwriting is just taking in new information, and taking care of myself. So I make sure that I stay in shape physically, and then also just stay open to new books or new movies or anything around me, so that when the time comes, the song can flow more freely.
Well, good, because you're actually answering all of these things that I wanted to ask. The last time you were here at Luther College, my husband and a friend of his, Keith, sort of bombarded you backstage and got talking with you about books, which they were quite excited about, and went and reported onto the book club what it was that Mason Jennings was currently reading. So that was actually a question that was texted to me 10 minutes ago. What is Mason reading now? What are you reading right now?
What am I reading? Well, I just got a Louise Erdrich. Erdrich, is that how you say it?
Yeah, from North Dakota, right?
Yeah, she has a great bookstore in Minneapolis, and I always go to that bookstore, but I haven't read any of her books, so I think it's the Master Butcher's Singing Club or something like that.
Yeah,
so
okay.
Just got that, and Wendell Berry, I've been liking his books, and then as far as like nonfiction, I've been really enjoying this Louis Armstrong biography that came out last year called Pops. I really like Louis Armstrong, so that's kind of what's on my queue right now. When
you're reading things like that, do you ever find that it slips into your writing?
Totally. I think, especially when I was writing Blood of Man, I think I was reading so much Cormac McCarthy.
Yes.
And then when I heard the record back, I thought, well, yeah, that definitely got in there, like that kind of economy of words and the darkness of it mixed with, just the contrast. I usually gravitate towards really, really intense contrast in art that I like, and I think that sort of plays out in the way that even with Minnesota, where you have a record like Witch's Dream, and on the same record as a song like Bitter Heart, where they're just the total polar opposite of kind of expressions. So I really like contrast.
How are you feeling about this new album in terms of your sort of discography? How does this one sort of rate in your own personal opinion?
Well, it's just sort of like where I'm at right now. I kind of don't really think about it too much more than just, it feels really current to where I am. And I was just, the thing about recording in my own studio and doing stuff more in kind of a homemade style is that I love that spirit to come through. And I just sort of had the epiphany, like a few years back, that I just think that the spirit of what you're trying to do is the most important part. So wherever you can feel comfortable and get to a place where you are, in that playful space or a space where you can almost say things that otherwise you'd be embarrassed to say, like get to a place where you're really getting open and honest with yourself as an artist. And so I just make sure that's the leading principle behind the records, is just, trying to lead with a sense of trying to do something I haven't done before and be present for it and not think too hard past that.
Given that you're in the moment and you're writing things about life and how it's affecting you currently, do you ever find in those honest moments, because obviously things that we do on a day-to-day basis are informed by the people that live around us, so therefore when you're writing, your responses to things also by nature of what situation you're in includes them. So for instance, your partner or your children or your brother or your parents or whatever it might be, is that ever a problem for you or for them?
I haven't had anybody say it. Well, you know what? My wife and I definitely talk through stuff with just making sure there's nothing on there that makes her uncomfortable. I don't want her to feel like exposed or something, to it. But for the most part, she and I and my family have talked about how important art's been in our life, and that kind of art. People like Neil Young or Lucinda Williams or John Prine, just people throughout my life. Those are the people that I go to. It's not really for entertainment as much as it is for just sort of like a lifeline, or just to feel not alone. So if it can have that kind of resonance in somebody else's life and maybe bring some sort of that feeling of not being alone to somebody else, then I'm pretty open to putting it out there. I mean, and that said, none of my songs are totally autobiographical. I mean, some part of them always is, but I'm more of definitely a songwriter. I like when songs resonate, so I make sure that I'll definitely make it so the song is resonating inside my heart. That's the first goal, and then autobiographical part of it, that's not as important to me.
Yeah. Again, we're on Artist Direct here on FM 100.5, and we're speaking with Mason Jennings this morning. One of the questions I also had emailed to me is, did your music change when you started raising a family?
Yeah, I think it really did. I definitely had a lot more trouble with just saying sweeping gestures, saying like, this is the way it is, or, and I noticed too my music is less about, lost love and more about trying to keep love. Those kind of, it's a different kind of perspective. And I mean, a lot of what I try to do by keeping that spirit of play in my music is just to try to, kind of counteract the thing that happens as we get older, which I think is any thought I have almost the exact opposite thought immediately. Like it's kind of gets more clouded in my mind as I get older, as I become more reflective, and I realize that there's many points of view that might be right. So how do I write from one point of view? And I just try to get to that spirit of play, because then you can maybe write quicker or have like a more clean gesture come out through it. That's been the biggest challenge as I've become a parent. It's just I hear my perspective, my kids' perspective, my wife's perspective, all my friends' perspective, and my community's perspective. Every time I say anything, I'm like I feel like checks and balances there going a little bit, and I try not to get too caught up in that whirlwind of it.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of voices.
Yeah, I think it is. It's a lot of pressure, but it's also a lot of support. So I try to look at the support side of it more.
That's a great way to look at it. I see that you are back and doing some performances again in Minneapolis in November and in December. And I wonder, does Minneapolis continue to be to you the kind of environment that provides what you need to continue writing there?
Yeah, so far it has. I mean, I live outside the city, so I'm definitely more of in the woods kind of. The woods of Minnesota is really, really nourishing to me. And then, in Minneapolis, they've got a great radio station in The Current, the great NPR station that I really like. The support they've given me has just been, and our whole community, the music community, has been so huge because, 5 years ago, when it was just started taking off, shows, people, local bands were having trouble selling out shows, and now that it's in full swing, it's such a big part of our community that you go to a show any night of the week, and people know about the show and they know what the bands sound like, and I mean, it's really, really cool. Radio is really powerful in a community, so that's been really huge for me living here, and the theater districts. There's so many theaters, and just it's got a great confluence of the woods meets the arts. It's a cool
the arts
place.
Meets the Northwoods. I like it. So who have you gone to see in Minneapolis? Do you get out to see shows, or is it not possible anymore?
Yeah, I go. I mean, I don't. I've been on the road for the last month or something like that, but you know, I try to go down to First Avenue a bunch when people come through towns. I saw Bright Eyes come through there, and you know, I always like seeing different bands. Like, there's a band from here called the Bad Plus that I love. And,
yes.
You know, there's lots of really good people. Jeremy Messersmith or Haley Bonner. Or, you know, my old bass player Chris Morrissey has a band called Taurus that I really like. And
is it Tourist? You said.
Taurus, like the zodiac.
Oh, got it. Got to write this one down. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, and it's got a cool scene. I mean, I like the fact that, you know, in Minneapolis you have a band like Atmosphere, which is a hip hop band that's like gigantic. I mean, they're huge. And then you also have Semisonic and the Jayhawks, and all these bands come out of here that are more rock. And the Jayhawks have a new record too that I saw those guys recently, and that was good. Yes,
they do. We saw them at Basilica. That was a great concert. They did a fantastic job.
They were huge.
I've got to say, the Pines are opening for you, it looks like, in your Minneapolis shows in November and December. Have you toured with them at all before?
I hadn't, but that's definitely, I mean, that's probably my favorite local band. I was hesitant to call them Minnesota because, you know, David lives here, but they're more Iowa, and
right.
But that band, they're fantastic, and I just, you know, it's rare to find songs that you can kind of, I don't know, it makes you feel the same way a book feels, or like you can kind of live inside some of their songs. And a song like Shiny Shoes, for instance, is like one of my favorite songs. And so it's been great. They've been touring with me on this whole run, and we're going to go back out west, and it's been neat because they sit in with us at the end of the show, and we become sort of like one band, and it's really fun at the end. So it's been fun to tour with them.
Well, it's really nice to see as an audience member too when musicians get together and can collaborate like that on stage. It makes for a very exciting concert experience. So thanks for.
Yeah, I hope.
I'm sitting here, I'm just grabbing music here because we're going to play another song before I let you go. And I have to thank you again, Mason, by the way, for taking time. I know you're busy and touring and doing all this, but we really appreciate it here in Iowa and in our sort of tri-state listening area in Rochester and La Crosse, Wisconsin. We really appreciate your music, and we're glad that you're writing and doing as much as you are.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate having me on. I appreciate you playing the music, too. Thanks.
Of course. So we listened to the first track. That one we've taken care of, but I want to hear another one. Your selection. I'll let you choose here. What shall we end the show with?
This is a song called Raindrops on the Kitchen Floor, and I picked it sort of in contrast to Clutch, because when I'm writing a record, I kind of just, you know, start in and write all kinds of stuff, and usually two songs sort of start to take shape, and I can kind of see them as almost like two endpoints, and they sort of, from those two songs, they sort of work inwards and sort of fill out the record. And when I wrote Clutch, I felt like, oh yeah, there's a lot of material in here that can kind of be explored more with piano and that kind of tone. And then when I wrote Raindrops on the Kitchen Floor, I felt like, oh yeah, okay, here we go. It's gonna be a piano-based record, and it's gonna be that kind of, you know, focusing on the everyday, you know, there's moments in your everyday life that kind of just illuminate, and kind of you see like a bigger reality behind the small moments in your life, and just start to trust your heart throughout the journey through life.
Well, and this is a beautiful song. If I could just be ridiculous for a moment and quote a line from it: "Rest stop on a good road trip. I recognize you in an instant from a rolling distance, walking out into a grove of trees, and the love that I feel is just overwhelming." It's such a beautiful setup and a wonderful way of putting it. And whoever thought a rest stop was going to end up in a song?
You got to get the middle. You know, the journey's more important than the destination, right?
That's right. It caught me in a second. I loved it. So, Mason Jennings, again, we're going to hear Raindrops on the kitchen floor here as we exit Artist Direct. But Mason Jennings, thank you again for taking time to talk with us this morning on Artist Direct.
Oh, thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. It's Mason Jennings off of the new album Minnesota. Here's Raindrops on the Kitchen Floor.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Raindrops on the kitchen floor, and the curtain is blowing where the window's open. Your arms wrapped around my neck, and the kitchen sink is just overflowing. On top of this crazy world, there's a perfect face, and I finally see it. One dream in these dreamless times, you need a beacon of hope, and I want to be it. And you know that it's true. This heart was made for you. You know that it's true. This rest stop on a good road trip. I recognize you in an instant from a rolling distance. Walking out into a grove of trees, and the love that I feel is just overwhelming. Spring flower by a singing stream, and the secret to the thing is let nothing divide us. One boat in an open sea, it's just you and me, and our hearts to guide us. And you know that is true. This heart was made for you. You know that is true. This heart was made for you. How am I gonna live forever? Promise me you will. Call it off the age of reason. There's no more time to kill. Show me, show me. Raindrops on the kitchen floor, and the smell of pines comes slowly drifting. I've stood here so many times, but your hand in mine makes it feel so different. And you know that it's true. This heart was made for you. You know that it's true. This heart was made for you. You know that it's true. This heart was made for you.
Thank you for listening to Artist Direct, presented by Holstrom Jewelers, Elm Street, Cresco. Catch Artist Direct again next week, right here on FM 100.5 KDEC.